All right. Good morning, everyone. So we are going to get started. We'll admit some people as they come in, but good morning. My name is Angel Whitehead. I am the president for the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce, and we are excited to have you here for our Coffee with the Chamber. We're very excited about our speaker, Garrett. He is with Savion, and he's going to be talking about the Saratoga Solar Project. Garrett is the Senior Development Manager at Savion and is now the project manager for the project. So Garrett, I'm going to let you take over. And again, just as a reminder, keep yourself muted to the end and we'll ask questions then. Thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thank you for that introduction. So yeah, hi, everybody. I am Garrett Ketchen. I have met some of you, and for those of you who I have not met, very nice to meet you. I am the project manager for the Saratoga Solar Project. I joined Savion in the fall of last year. Really excited to take over this project. It is right next to the previous project that we developed, which is now owned by WI.A, but the Wood County Solar Project. And things are going smoothly. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, but we like to provide updates to the community as this project matures and unfolds. And so I think this is a great opportunity to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And can people see the screen?
Yep.
Cool. Alrighty, so this is the presentation. So like I said, the Saratoga Solar Project, let's dive right in. So real quick, I always like to give kind of a high level overview of the project statistics. And so the solar capacity is 150.5 megawatts. It's pretty much the exact size as the previous project. There is a 52.5 megawatt energy storage component. We are looking through that, and it is not an absolute guarantee, but we're definitely evaluating it because it really helps the economics and also helps the resilience of the grid. But more studies have to come for that aspect of the project. Footprint right now, from within the fences, you're looking at about 1,000 acres, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but I think it's a good approximation. Start of construction, if all goes well, and so far it's going smooth, we anticipate kicking that off in the fourth quarter of next year, 2023. That would put us for a commercial operation date of Q4 2024. Lifespan of the project would be 35 years. People always ask, okay, how much electricity do these projects generate? It's about the equivalent of 40,000 homes worth of electricity for a year. So we'll go on to the next slide. This is just kind of an agenda of what we'll run through today. Start off with the Savion introduction. We'll get into solar background. We'll get into energy storage background. We'll do a project overview with some maps and stuff like that. Then we can get into economic impact. We have a few visual simulations just to kind of give, what the project would look like from the side of the road. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions. So moving right along. So I'm not going to read through all this, but this is just kind of a quick overview of who Savion is. Recently, I think probably one of the more recent updates that I can give is that Shell recently purchased us. And so before that, we were owned by a company called Macquarie, which is just a private equity firm. Shell now owns us. Shell really has ambitious renewable energy goals. They really want to kind of offset their carbon footprint, which is why they acquired us. We are the first in their portfolio for doing these kind of projects. Really excited about it. They've shared with us their ambitious goals, and I think we're going to be able to, streamline some of the processes and, hopefully make these projects better, smoother, and just overall better projects with their help. They've got a great engineering team and great supply chain resources, which we can really benefit from. Everybody's going through that right now. So let's continue on. So real quick, this is kind of some numbers in our portfolio. So for solar and energy storage, either in operation, under construction, or contracted, you're looking at 31 projects. That's about 2,500 megawatts. in 12 different states. In development alone, so these are projects still prior to construction. We're looking at about 80 projects, or just under 1,300 megawatts in 26 states. And then from the energy storage components side, you're looking at 50 projects. That's a little over 4,200 megawatts in 17 states. As you can see, we've got a wide range of projects all over the country, and really exciting for us. I think there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of potential for renewable energy projects, as the country shifts towards away from conventional generation and towards renewable energy. Real quick, so kind of what I was talking about before, you probably would recognize us from the Wood County Solar Project. We started this project, and this was before my time. We started this project a few years ago. Last year, it was sold to Alliant. It is going to be owned and operated by them. It's currently under construction. I believe things are going pretty smooth. I hear that they're delivering, or they started delivering panels not too long ago, which is great news because, again, I think there was a little bit of delays with supply chains over there, but one of the benefits that these projects bring is during construction time, you'll see a little bit of an economic boom. Right now you have, or this is actually probably a month ago, but I'm sure it's similar, about 140 construction workers currently employed on that project. And very similar to the Saratoga Solar Project, when this gets built, it'll provide over 21 million to the county and town over the life of the project. That derives from, and I can get into that a little bit later, but that derives from the Wisconsin Utility Aid Payment Program. And it's about $4,000 per megawatt that's put forth by the state. And also, I'm sure some y'all live in the area. This is, if there's anything as far as feedback goes, something we can improve, something we can do better, or anything like that. I think these community meetings, or even if it's via an email, great opportunity to give us feedback, because obviously these projects are not something that comes in and out. I mean, they're there for a long time, and so we want to be in a mutually beneficial relationship with the community. We want to be in a situation where both sides are able to communicate and make the process a little bit better. So give us feedback. Always like to show a map of kind of where the two projects stands. I'm a very visual person, and I think this helps a lot. So if you look on the west side of the project, and hopefully y'all can see my mouse, this blue outline would be the outline of the Wood County Solar Project. That's the one that's currently under construction and owned by Alliant. What you cannot see on this map is there is a transmission line almost at this diagonal angle right here. That is where both projects will be plugging in to the grid. What you see in the orange is the original, and I want to say land control, because this entire orange perimeter is not going to be where all the panels are. Typically when you start these projects, you have more land than you need, and the engineers take the land that makes the most economic sense, but while also factoring in community needs and environmental needs and stuff like that. But as we will get into later, the infrastructure would not cover all this area in orange, only some of it. But this is what we started when we looked out. This is what we looked at when we started with the project. But as it goes on, like I said, the engineers determine where the infrastructure would go, and then you kind of chip away from there. So continue on down the presentation. So always like to give a high level kind of timeline for the development process. This one, I will say, is in the mid stage of the project, but in the beginning, typically you get the land, you start with your interconnection process. As time goes on, you're doing your environmental studies, making sure that there's no environmental concerns, cultural resource studies. Our engineers are out there, making sure that there's no engineering problems, whether it be wetlands or whatever it may be. As this project matures, you start getting into, and this is something that's specific to the state of Wisconsin, the CPCN process with the state. And so if you can see my mouse right here, we are right about this stage of the development process. And so we've kicked off community outreach earlier this year. This is another example of community outreach, and it will continue to go as this project matures. But that's kind of a prerequisite for the CPCN process, along with a bunch of other things. But we have had our pre-application meeting with the state. It went very well. We luckily have a good relationship with them from the previous project. We are going through the application right now, and we're going to actually have a full submittal either by the end of, definitely by the end of April, and maybe closer to the mid of April, but it kind of depends. But we're getting all our ducks in a row to submit everything with that, and then that'll take about up to a year. Hopefully it'll be quicker than that. Hopefully it'll be closer to 10 months, kind of depends, but it cannot take longer than a year. And then as time goes on, our electrical engineers and our transmission team will be continuing to working through the MISO queue, making sure that we can plug in and capacities there, which everything looks good at this point. And then as you get later down the road, I have a separate team who will be working on something like PPAs or power purchase agreements to essentially ensure that the electricity, they have a buyer for the electricity. And then later on, obviously you would have construction. Now, I should also note that up to this point, our bread and butter has been taking projects to being shovel ready. And then like last time around, that's when Alliant took over. Now, I don't know. I don't know who would end up with this project. It could be Alliant. It could even be Shell. It's a little early to tell. People always like to ask me that question. I will say that Shell does have an appetite in the future to own and operate projects. How quickly that will be implemented, really, it's too hard to tell at this point. But no matter who it ends up being, they have to abide by the agreements that we set with the community. So like one of the things we're working through right now is a joint developer agreement, which is just essentially a memorialization of needs from both parties to make sure that they are addressed during the development of this project. And so whether it's us, Alliant, or whoever, all these rules and agreements are set in place ahead of time. So, and then construction takes a little over a year to do, pending weather. If they can do it quicker, obviously they will, but wouldn't count on really too much quicker than that. Let's go to the next slide. So this is kind of just an overview of solar in Wisconsin. I'll tell you, it's actually one of the fastest growing states in terms of solar projects. So right now you're looking at over 620 megawatts of solar throughout the state. Just under a gigawatt, or 950 megawatts, are currently in the permitting process with the state through the CPCN process. 8,100 megawatts solar is currently in the MISO queue. Now, what I will say, people might be like, well, that's a lot. And it really is. Now, it is important to note that some of those projects will drop out, especially as the queue process matures. But again, I think that just reflects on the direction at where the grid is going at this point. You have $800 million invested in solar so far. If this project goes through, it'd quickly go over $1 billion. Installations are expected to exceed 3,900 megawatts in the next 5 years. You can kind of see that on the graph over here. That's why I attached it. And this only goes to 2021, but I mean, if you were to extrapolate moving forward, you can only imagine the direction in which it's going. These projects help bring Wisconsin to energy independence. And so what I mean by that is, so the state is actually retiring a few conventional generation plants, and something's going to need to replace that generation. And I think these projects are a great opportunity to achieve that goal. Another thing to note that I find really interesting is that Wisconsin actually consumes 6 times as much electricity as it generates. So a lot of that electricity actually has to come from out of state. And projects like these can help offset numbers like that. And so, and then, yeah, like I said, utilities are planning to retire multiple conventional power plants in the near future. So continue on. Not going to read through all these, but one of the reasons you see this big boost in solar projects throughout the state is for this right here. So this is a list of just some of the utilities in the area. On the right hand side, you can kind of see their goals, and as I was saying earlier, there's very ambitious renewable energy goals. So WI.A, which is the largest in terms of customers, they have an 80% CO2 reduction by 2030, and they want to be CO2 neutral carbon neutral by 2050. Alliant Energy, and we're more familiar with that one because obviously right down the road at the Wood County Solar Project, that's where this applies. They want to be 33% renewables mix by 2024 and 100% CO2 reduction by 2050. Everybody can see the rest of these. These are a little bit smaller utilities, but I just always like to point out this is one of the reasons why we're seeing such a boost in this kind of technologies, because there's a very strong appetite for it. But yeah. Always like to show this map. So this is what we call our solar resource map, and pretty self-explanatory here. So the deeper the red, the better in terms of solar intensity in that area. And so if you look in this area, you can kind of see how deep and dark red it is. Wood County is either the best or very close to the best. I think it's number one, but if it's not, it's definitely like number 2 or 3 in terms of solar components, solar intensity in the state. That is definitely one of our key components, one of the key pillars to making these projects successful is, obviously if the sun's not shining, well, it doesn't really work. So, just at a high level, I think this gives a good overview of what we're looking at from a resource standpoint. Now, obviously, there's a lot more things that come into play to make these projects successful, but this is, one of the first things we look at when we go to develop a project. So now let's talk on the energy storage component. So this would actually be one of the differences between the previous project and this one, at least at the time, when that project was built, there was no storage component with it. With this one, there's definitely a possibility. Now, I will say the economics have to work. One of the problems with energy storage right now is that supply chains have been rocked, and it's really hard to get the components. And it's not just that industry. The whole world's going through that. But if the economics work, it makes a lot of sense, and it really helps the grid as well. And so, I think my favorite analogy for describing this would be, it's almost like a shock absorber, right? So the battery would take in energy during excess supply, and so can everybody still hear me? It said my microphone went out.
You went out for a second, but we can hear you now, or I can.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, I always like to compare it to a shock absorber, right? Because during times of excess supply, it'll store it up, and then during times of when there is demand, it'll pump it back into the grid. One of the shortcomings of solar up to this point is been, the sun will shine during the day, and that's great, but if you can store that energy for off-peak times, well, it only makes the project economics that much better, and it makes the grid more resilient. Probably one of my favorite quotes is from our friends over at ESA. Energy storage fundamentally improves the way we generate, deliver, and consume electricity. Energy storage helps during emergencies like power outages from storms, equipment failures, accidents, or even terrorist attacks. But the game-changing nature of energy storage is its ability to balance power supply and demand instantaneously within milliseconds, which makes power networks more resilient, efficient, and cleaner than ever before. In this case, so typically before you would have, if there needs to be extra generation on the grid, you'd have something like, let's say, like a natural gas plant that would kick up its production at that time, but it's not super quick. It takes a while to ramp up. This technology is, it's instantaneously, so it's almost like a cushion effect immediately, and it's quicker than what was used conventionally. So, and then also always like to provide a graph here. So these are projections put forth by Wood Mackenzie, one of the largest firms out there. And this is kind of a projection of where the United States is going in terms of installations for battery storage. Only goes to 2025, and I'm sure as cost comes down and technology improves, it'll be obviously higher than that in 2026 forward. I'm not going to read through all this, but typically in the past, when there's not a storage component, the way it would work was the sun would shine, the panels would take in that energy, it'd go underground through collection lines to the project substation. That substation would kick it up to a higher voltage. It would then go into the transmission line and then be dispersed from there. In this case, like I was talking about on the last slide, the one difference would be, the energy storage component would charge in times of excess energy production and discharge when the energy is needed. And so it's honestly, it's a pretty simple installation, and it's simple from the permitting process. You just have to make sure that the economics work and everything like that. But it's a pretty great technology to pair with solar projects, just because of the nature of when the sun shines and stuff like that. So and I will say, we don't know exactly what technology we would use at this point. The engineers are still evaluating this. Most of them are very similar. I mean, there are some differences, but as this project unfolds, one of the things we will do is, because this is new compared to the Wood County one, we will have ongoing discussions with the community on what technology will be used, where will they be placed, all that fun stuff. Okay, so why this site? This is just a kind of an overview of why we picked this site, what works about it, and stuff like that. So if everyone will recall from a few slides back, the Wood County Solar Project would be on the west side of this. Here's the transmission line. It would be over here. So if you can see my mouse, this is where the Wood County Solar Project would be. We essentially just shifted right over to the east, on the east side of this transmission line. We can plug right in. There will not need to be any additional transmission lines built, installed, anything like that. We can plug in on site, which is frankly very convenient. So yeah, like I said, proximity to transmission line. As of right now, there's really no significant environmental issues. We are still running some studies, but if all goes smooth, from everything that we can see thus far, there really are none, which is good news. Yeah, it's some of the best solar. I guess it is the best solar resource in all of Wisconsin. Typically in the past, we've had good support from Wood County for solar projects, and then also, like I was talking about in a few slides back, Wisconsin utilities have a really strong appetite for renewable energy, and it's only going to increase over time. So this is a great way to bring energy independence back to Wisconsin, and kind of address all the conventional power plants that will be taken offline in the near future. So next slide. So here is the map that everyone loves to see. I will say and stress that this is preliminary and subject to change. And then with that being said, I don't expect it to change too much. But with environmental studies going on and everything, you just never know. And so I just always like to say this is technically subject to change. But if it does, I really can't anticipate it changing too much. Let's go through the legend real quick. So orange is essentially project land control. Now, all that means is this is what we had at our disposal for the engineers to use. As you can see, it's more acreage than we actually need. And, from an engineering standpoint, the economics make the most sense to utilize this land right here. And so another thing to note is the yellow is right now is what's planned in the primary is a primary infrastructure layout, which means that like if this project were to get built tomorrow, the yellow is where you would see the solar panels go. The white is what we call alternates, or think of it like backups. And so one of the processes for the CPCN submittal is they always want you to have roughly about 25% extra panels or land to use, just in case, again, something changes from an environmental standpoint or anything like that, or if engineers for some reason can't use this land, or this white would just be a backup. But like I said, it probably, if it got built tomorrow, there would be nothing there. But if we had to move panels, this is where the first place we would go, is this white areas. This dotted line around the edge of the project is right now the designated fence line, just exactly like they did for Wood County. There's a 50-foot buffer in between the perimeter and the fence line. When I say perimeter, I mean the actual property perimeter that we would be using. Over here, you can see where the interconnection, the project substation, and the energy storage components are all concentrated. A couple other things to note. There would be 2 access points. As of right now, the 2 access points are off of Tower Road right here on the east side of Highway 13. And so components would be delivered right here. And then the other access point would be off of Blue Ridge Lane. And then they would come up north up here. These gray areas are roads, and project roads, I should say. Yeah, these are the 2 delivery components. Yeah, next slide. Economic impacts. And so this will be almost exactly the same to the Wood County Solar Project because of the same size. And so the state of Wisconsin has what's called utility aid payments. And the way that works is you would have $4,000 set aside for every megawatt that this project, for every megawatt of this project. And so in this case, 4,000 times 150 would be a total of 600,000. It is divided between the county and the town. So the way the rules work, the county would get 2/3, the town would get 1/3. So every year that would calculate to $350,000 to the county, $250,000 to the town. Over the life of the 35-year project, that comes out to be 21 million. And if the rules change, then we have to abide by the rules. But again, that's just put forth by the state. During the time of construction, there is a little bit of an economic boom. Throughout the life or construction time of the project, you're looking at about 300 direct and indirect construction jobs. There'll be increased revenue from the employees working or going to the restaurants, hotels, local shops, everything like that. And then when the project is installed and everyone's away, there'll be about 2 to 5 permanent O&M jobs that will be, living in the town. Their kids will be going to school with your kids. They will be on the project to make sure it runs smoothly when it's all said and done. The good thing about this one is, and honestly, all solar project is, once they're built, they're really kind of a low maintenance project. There's not much resources consumed. It doesn't stretch teachers thin. Really no noise. It's pretty low maintenance once it gets built and once it's done. I will say, for everyone, everyone's been through it. To be frank, construction is probably the busiest time of these projects, and so we try to do what we can to make that process as smooth as possible. Once it's done, it's pretty smooth from that point forward. Like to throw in some visuals, and so this is on Highway 13 looking west. So if you can see this red arrow where my mouse is on the west side of Highway 13, if you were looking to the southwest, this is what you would see right now. And then we had our engineering firm put together some visual simulations of what the project would look like once it gets built. And so they did some Photoshop here, but you can kind of see, so this is the before and this is the after. And so you can kind of see, this is probably what you would see on Highway 13. You have the fence and then obviously the infrastructure back there. Just one example, because people always want to know what that looks like now. I'm sure, people have driven by the previously built project, but, actually that one's not fully done yet, so you probably wouldn't see all this detail yet. But we got another location to show. So this is on Tower Road. So this is almost exactly where that, if you guys remember, where that access point for the project on the east side of Highway 13. So you look at this map right here, we're on Tower Road. We're looking to the northwest towards Highway 13. This is what you would see today. And then this is after. And so right here, if you can see where my mouse is, this would actually be the entry point for the project where all the components would be delivered. And then obviously you can see set back in there, you see the fence, and then you also see the infrastructure as well. And so again, just a quick before and after. So before and then after. And then contact info right there. I'm not going to make you read the disclaimer. Questions?
If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you feel more comfortable, you can drop it in the chat and I'm happy to read those questions out. So go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any.
For those of us who are completely not familiar with solar energy or scientific terms, what is the equivalent of, and I hope I don't sound like an idiot, how big is a megawatt?
So the average home in Wisconsin, I looked this up recently, uses 713 kilowatt hours per month. And so a megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. So I would have to,
Okay. It's
my
helpful.
coffee hasn't hit yet, but yeah. So like, for example, this is a 150 megawatt project. It is, trying to think, I think they did the calculations. You're looking at 330,000 megawatt hours for the year of the project. And if you were to divide that by 713 kilowatts, 713 kilowatt hours, that's how you get to the 40,000 homes of worth of electricity for the year. Man, that was a tongue twister.
I just wanted to start with a really interesting specific question.
I'm doing math before my coffee. This is not the best for my brain.
I have a question about kind of sustainability of the facilities. So it's purchased, am I correct in saying that it's purchased by the utility company after construction, or it goes into their pool of resources? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, so Wisconsin, a lot of the times utilities do like to own and operate projects. And so, yeah, if what happened for Wood County was when the project became shovel ready, that we sold it to them. And so it became their asset pretty much right as construction kicked off. And then they will own and operate it moving forward.
Okay, so are they, when you talk about the 2 jobs or the 2 to 3 jobs, then are they paying the people who are staying, or do those become employees of the county in that case then?
They would probably have an Alliant name tag on them. So it actually, yeah, they would live in the county, or most likely live in the county, but yeah, it would be Alliant employees in that case.
And then if like panels need to be replaced, or, for sustainability, like ongoing maintenance, is that the responsibility? So then once that went to Wood County, once it was shovel ready, so then they're responsible for any kind of ongoing maintenance of the facilities or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's language in multiple different agreements that say they can't just abandon anything. I mean, I can't really imagine a situation where they would, but yeah, they are required to maintain and operate it, keep it safe. Like they have like they have to have lighting on the roads. A lot of the times it's motion censored. They have to maintain the roads. They will probably either have someone on site at all times to make sure that things are safe, or the other thing they can do is a lot of times they have remote operations facilities where they can just plug into the project anywhere, wherever their headquarters are, and monitor it from there. But yeah, they are very hands-on. I mean, usually these things run smoothly and the computers do everything for you, but you do need people there just to kind of make sure things are running smoothly.
I guess I was talking to a smaller community about a community solar project, and the manufacturers of the panels had changed or something like that. And I was just wondering, in cases like that where equipment may change or something like that, the ongoing maintenance, but that answers it. Thanks.
Other questions for today?
Hi, yeah, can you all hear me okay? I'm driving.
Yeah, go ahead
Yeah.
with your question.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so good morning. So in your presentation, you talked about community outreach. Could you share with us what that community outreach looks like? And then also, you've done, based on what you shared, you've done a few of these projects. What kind of kickback have you had from the communities about projects similar to this?
Yeah, so community outreach, everything that probably falls under that umbrella would be, I mean, we have public meetings. We had a really big public meeting in January, the end of January, to kind of provide an update. Before that, and this is before I took over the project, I think June was the last, or July was the last public meeting. At that point, there was no engineering done back in June. They were still, doing some environmental studies and stuff like that. And they're very, like I said, very early on the engineering side. And then as we get forward with this project, we will probably have we will definitely have another public meeting and where we share, if there are any engineering updates, we'll share those. Also, we have a great, big shout out to Kim here. We have a great team working on, so we have a project website, we have a Facebook page, we put posts on there, project updates. We sent out little postcards, newsletters. It's actually part of the process for the CPCN. So essentially, all the permitting falls under the state, and it's the way the law is set forth is that the community outreach it's not mandatory, but it's, at this point, it's essentially precedent. And obviously you would never want to do a project like community outreach, because that would just set up the operations team for a nightmare. But the state will say, okay, Savion, what have you done for what have you done to communicate with the local community? And where has the communication been? And we actually have, it's one of the things that Kim has, we actually have a timeline Excel sheet of all the correspondence that we have with the community, town members, all that fun stuff. And then the other question was kickback from the community. So frankly, no matter, I used to be on the wind side too, and you would see it there, but anytime there's change, I totally understand. When you have a change of landscape, that has been probably some of the hesitation that we've seen. I will say that traffic during construction is always a concern, no matter what community you go into, because it is. I mean, during that year's time, there is 200-300 people on site coming and going. You have F-250s and small semis coming in. So there is a little bit of there's a little bit of noise during that time, and just a little bit of rowdiness that goes on. I can tell you also, probably some of the other pushback we've had is, we've been asked about a third phase of the project. right now, and I don't even think even if we wanted to, we could. But we definitely don't have a third phase planned, and nor do I think even the capacity on the transmission line. I mean, I checked on this 3 weeks ago, and I don't see any reason why it would change. But even as of 3 weeks ago, there's not even enough capacity to do a third phase if we wanted to. Yeah, I would probably say those are the top three. So just change the landscape, construction inconvenience, and then the question was, will there be a third phase? But like I said, very doubtful.
Garrett, we got a few questions via chat, so I'll just touch on those. So our first one, so both of them are in relation to the construction for the project, and I know you briefly touched on this. So the first part of the question is, in the process of construction, will there be short-term job opportunities for labor, so local labor? So what kind of contracting normally happens with that? And then kind of also on that, as the project keeps going, are you still looking for individuals to fill positions for construction? And if so, who should we direct them to if you're looking for contractors at that point? So if you just want to touch on that.
Yeah, they definitely try to source locally. I got to look back with Alliant, but I think it was close to half, if I remember. And I'll double check. We're sourced locally. They try to whenever possible because obviously A, it makes sense, B, it's kind of something that they can give back to the community with. I don't know who you should for this upcoming project. I actually don't know who to reach out to yet because it's so early. But one of the things we'll do is on our project website, as we get closer there, we will put contact info for whoever ends up building this project, and to share that information. But to be frank, I don't even know that we have a contact for this one because it's still a little bit early. But when that time comes, we definitely, or Alliant or whoever, definitely tries to get as many people locally as possible. But I would say on that second question, stay tuned to our project website, because as we get closer to construction, and we're going to have a pre-construction meeting anyway, that we can talk about it at that point. I don't have the answer for that second question right now.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And just as a reminder, when I send the follow-up email for today's session, I'll also send the website so everyone can have that as a resource. Any additional questions? We got a little bit of time left.
Yeah, Angel, this is Bill Lightnum. Hi, Garrett. We've talked many times before.
Hey, Bill.
Hi. So I want to talk energy storage for a minute. You probably gathered that I might want to do that. I won't try to get too deep into this, but for the rest of you listening, I'm Wood County Supervisor for District 19, which is this part of Wood County, and I also sit on the Saratoga Town Board. At the January public meeting, there was probably more discussion about energy storage than any other issue. And I won't apologize. I'm an unabashed environmentalist. I worry about what could happen to the environment. And then I also worry on behalf of my constituents of what might happen to things like their water supply. So going into that January meeting, my biggest concern, and then it was voiced throughout the audience, was this storage capacity. In the Wood County Solar Project, that capacity was likened to the batteries would assume as much area as 10 semi-trailers. And I don't know with the Saratoga Solar Project, if that would be the equivalent. I don't know how much progress has been made technologically to reduce that size. But at the time of the questioning in January, it was what type of containment facility would be underneath the batteries so that if there was leakage, battery acid, that sort of thing, onto the ground and then into the groundwater, how could we protect ourselves from that? Just so happens that yesterday I saw something on one of the news broadcasts that really frightened me. And I think it's something that Savion needs to address to the public at the next public meeting, and it's this, that during the American involvement in Afghanistan and Iraq, there were burn pits. So I think I can see on the monitor that I'm looking at right now, one of your engineers is listening, and I hope I'm right in who that is. But they said the problem from these battery storage facilities wouldn't be so much leakage into the groundwater, but it would be from a fire. So can we have any assurance in Saratoga that if the area of 10 semi-trailers burned, that there wouldn't be some sort of chemicals in the smoke going into the air? I mean, how fast can you suppress that type of fire? And then are the fire suppressants that would be on site for immediate use? I mean, we hear so much about PFAS. Could they produce some sort of chemical smoke going downwind from a severe fire? If I could have somebody, I know it's a big question, but if I could have somebody speak to that either now or at the next public meeting, I think that's one of the biggest concerns of area residents. So
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. So I will do my best. I do want to clarify, I'm not an engineer, but we have had a lot of conversations with the engineering team regarding this. Lots to unpack here. So first and foremost, in terms of chemicals getting into the air, I'm sure there would be. I don't know how to quantify that or, speak to how much that would be. What I can speak to is the safety surrounding the energy storage components. And so we've looked into this a lot. And so actually, we just got information back on a study so last year there was a fire in Australia at the Tesla mega storage plant. And one thing to note is that these battery components are not actually all in one container. And it depends on the brand, depends on the manufacturer, but they are kind of staggered out and they are separated, and they're intentionally separated so that if one of them catches fire, the rest of them don't. And so it wouldn't be like 10 semi-trailers all in one box or all in one room. They split them out. So if God forbid a fire does happen, it should not spread to the other ones. And so as far as the water component, so at least judging by, and this is an officially published paper by the Tesla fire that happened last year. So they did before and after water testing, and they actually found that there really was no significant change in the water at all from the fire, because they sprayed the battery components with water when they caught fire. Now, it's important to note that these batteries are encased and they're meant to not even ever get water inside, because obviously it's going to be exposed to the snow, hail, sleet, rain, all that fun stuff. So they are sealed off. And our technology would be the same lithium technology. I mean, maybe different manufacturers, but it'd be the same, bread and butter as the Tesla pack. And so anyway, so what they did there was they sprayed it with water to cool down just the outside of the casing. And then when the fire was all went out, they looked at the water. They looked at the water afterward. There was no really any chemicals in it at all. There was no real change from before and after. And that's again because the casing of what the batteries are stored in. Also, they did determine that in that case, like the water was almost useless. And then they probably, and this sounds a little bit alarming but it really is the best way to go from a safety standpoint, and is to just let it burn out. And so again, all these are not sitting in one giant container. They're spread out and literally separated so that if one catches fire, you just let it burn out, and then the other ones will be fine. One of the worst situations that has happened was in Arizona. There was an explosion and it was 2014. Technology was different, design was different, but they had everything in one box, and they also had a gaseous buildup, and I don't remember what the gas was in that. Where and it was a gas that they pumped in there on purpose, but essentially it was in like a small warehouse container thing, and a fireman opened the door, and the entire facility exploded because oxygen got in from outside. Now, the industry doesn't use that technology anymore. I also want to note that there was no training for local first responders in that case. So, when we go to Google, bad events surrounding storage, that is probably the worst one that you will find. But I do want to note that that kind of technology and setup is not used anymore. With that being said, I will say that, our engineers think that, and even judging by the results of the Tesla fire, double containment is not absolutely beneficial in terms of stopping anything, because, like I said, there was no before and after change in the water at the Tesla facility. With that being said, we do have ongoing conversations going on with the town, I'm sure as you know, and my understanding is that there will be a third-party expert from the town who's brought in to share his opinion. And right now we're going to the JDA with the town, and if the town determines that we absolutely need that double containment, well then we will abide by it. But frankly, I don't know that it really provides any benefit. But if it does, and it's something that we're held to in the joint developer agreement, then we're happy to move forward with it. But yeah, it's also important to note that there's a lot of technology within the components themselves that are meant to stop fires before they even happen. Stuff that didn't exist in the 2014 Arizona fire. And God forbid, if there is a fire, like I said, they shouldn't spread to all the different cells. They're separated in a sense to where they won't all catch fire. I'm trying to think what else. Did I miss any questions, Bill?
Well, thank you for that, Garrett. I don't know if you can go back in your presentation and pull up that map of the joint projects of the Wood County Solar Project. Yeah, that would probably do. There was one other map, but right where your cursor is now. Yeah, right where your cursor is now. That's the valley of the 7 Mile. And I'm just wondering, while we're in this development phase yet, if all of the interconnect and all of the battery storage components are there, you just add that one more element of the groundwater or surface water. If you could just slide that area ever so slightly north or south, at least you get out of the valley of the 7 Mile. I guess I'd ask you to look at that.
Yeah, I can definitely look at that. Let me talk to my engineering team. I'm happy to pass that on. At the end of the day, I don't have the ability to
Yeah,
tell
the
them
other
what-
map that I was referring to, Garrett, you can see there was an area.
This one?
No, I think there's one other one. No, this is the right map. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, that area that appears more gray, move your cursor just to the left. Yeah, I think that's where a tornado had gone through.
Yep.
And that roughly corresponds to the valley of the 7 Mile. I'm trying to pick that up on the map. But the area that we're talking about, I think, is just lower left of your cursor. Yeah, right in there.
Gotcha.
Yep. That was just a thought that I had. That
yeah,
maybe
we have to. The one anchor point is definitely we have to be on this
along the transmission line. Yeah,
that's a definite anchor point, and so I can definitely talk to them to see if we can reduce environmental concerns by shifting maybe to the northeast or something like that. That's just something I just have to have a conversation with them with.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, I think we have time for one more question if anyone has one. All right. Well, I want to thank Garrett and Savion and the Saratoga Solar Project for speaking today and sponsoring today's event. Coffee with the Chamber happens monthly, and we love to have local updates and information provided to the community. Again, I will be uploading this to YouTube, and I will be sending a YouTube link so you can refer back to the recording. And of course, if not able to attend, they can share it out with everyone as well. Our next session will be again hosted next month, and it's Cold Calls to Warm Calls by Kissinger Insurance Agency. So thank you everyone again, and I hope you have a wonderful day and drive safe if you're here in Wisconsin.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.